All right, testing. Can we find our seats and check that we have masks and that they're over our mouth and our nose and behind our ears or our neck? And they're FFP2 and without valves and whatever else we like our masks to be like. And thank you very much. I'm going to say this again later for wearing them. I realize there's a discrepancy between what's happening in the meeting rooms and outside in the wider world in the UK. We're going to consult on that going forward. Send us your opinions. But for now and here, Barry, please. Oh, you're actively drinking. Sorry, Barry just was raising the cup that I didn't see. He's a professional attendee. So since I've all quieted you down nicely, welcome all to London. It's great to see even more of you in person than we had in Vienna and in Philadelphia. So I think we're on an upswing post-COVID, which is what we were hoping for. We're still not quite where we were before, and we may never get there, who knows, but at least sort of the trend looks very good. My name is Lars Eggert, I'm the chair of the IETF, and I'm gonna run you through the presentation as sort of the MC for tonight. If you wanna, at some point, go to the microphone, you should scan this QR code now. It probably is gonna stay up, but who knows? So this is your chance to get out your phone, and that will let you get in the queue, because that's how we're gonna manage who is gonna speak next when we have open mic. Right, I said this already. So I made a tweak to this slide because we're techies and we like RFC 2119. So I added some uppercase terms here to make this sort of clearer to you, right? So the must and the recommended and the not required. And I didn't quite go to the effort of rewriting the rest of it, but I think this is sort of helpful, you know, because it's like a protocol. You know, you don't like it, but you still got to do it, and it's fine. It makes us all safer. We have some really low numbers. I'm going to have a slide later. I hope the numbers haven't increased since that slide was made, but it looks very good at the moment. So you can take off your mask, as Barry just did, to drink something. That's completely fine. Remember to put it back up, right? If you sit next to somebody who forgets, maybe you nudge them and say, hey, you know, if you don't want to wear a mask, you don't have to be in this room. I want to also say that, right? You have the option of leaving and then remotely participating. That's completely up to you. Active speakers are people like me that are babbling on a microphone, not to your neighbor. So you may also take off your mask, and it's helpful because it makes the audio a little bit clearer, especially for the remote attendees. And we don't, decided not to recognize any exemptions. And you gotta wear a good mask, that's the other option. Right, enough about masks. The note well is an eye chart that you've all seen many times by now. So anything you say here or elsewhere is a contribution to the IETF that comes with certain obligations. Be aware that you know what they are before you start contributing. And that's all I'm going to say here. We also have some sort of code of conduct obligations on you that I think are pretty clear. If they're not, go read them up. If you're online, welcome. If you decide to if you're online, you were joined with your audio being muted and your video off. And if you want to go to the microphone to ask a question, you need to actively enable your audio. And I'm also going to ask you to enable your video because it's nice if you have a face with a voice. And if you have a headset and it works well, please use it, it helps. And there's a long URL here with more information. But since you probably participated earlier in the week somewhere, you probably know all this already. We have a slightly fuller agenda than normal because we have a bunch of one-offs that we don't typically do. So we're in the welcome part. Ted Hardy from Cisco, who is hosting this meeting, is going to do a quick presentation. And then we have the usual round of brief updates again from me for the IETF and the ISG, from Mirja Kühlewind for the IAB, from Colin Perkins for the IRTF, from Rich Sauls for the NOMCOM, for the IETF LLC, which is split between Jay Daly, the executive director, and Jason Livingood, who is the director of the board, chair of the board. We have a one-off, which is the RSCE introduction. Alexis Rossi is going to say hi. I have decided I'm going to start pronouncing RSCE as risky. And I'm just going to keep doing that until everybody else does the same, or I stop. Either one of those two are possibilities. But this acronym I wish we would find something with like another vowel in there somewhere. Right. We have a preview for IETF116. We're going to Yokohama. That got a great round of applause in Philadelphia when we announced it. We're all very excited. And one of my key achievements this week, I met a newcomer yesterday at a social who is from Yokohama, or is from Japan at least, and she's going to be my dinner booker. And I told her to pick a nice place that she likes because she's obviously going to come along to like facilitate things. And this is creating a win-win situation I'm going to rely on for the entire week. So I don't think she knows what she got herself into, but it's going to work really well for me at least. We have the Jonathan B. Postel Award, which is also a special thing that we don't do all the time. So Andrew Sullivan, the CEO of iSoc, is going to present that to a very deserving individual. And then we have the usual round of open mic. This time the order is IAB, LLC, ISG. There's a bunch of other people here that aren't part of one of the open mics. If you want to ask them questions, my suggestion would be you go in line while they talk. But I also want to caution you that we didn't really budget a whole lot of time for Q&A for other slots. So I might cut you and tell you to take it to the mailing list or somewhere else. Warren is saying something I can't understand. Might cut you off. Might, no. You're so brutal. Right, thank you to Cisco, our meeting host for this meeting. Highly appreciate your long-lasting contribution to the IETF in very, very many forms. So this is not the only time you're going to see a Cisco logo on this slide deck. I hope I didn't give anything away here. But so Cisco has been very good to the IETF for a very long time. We're very happy they're hosting us here. They organized a great social for us. The food is actually very interesting. I don't think I ever had like a big patty of meat and a tortellini at the same time. And like I was wondering, what is this? But I've heard this from many people. It was very surprising combinations, but they were all very good and pretty healthy. And the art exhibition was amazing, and the music was great. So thank you for that, especially. That was excellent. And apologies to the people who didn't get a ticket. I don't think I've ever seen as many emails about who has a ticket, can I get one? There's a certain number of people that let into these places, and when it's gone, it's gone. I think we're going to try and add something to the new participant emails that says, because there was a lot of new participants who just didn't know that it was going to happen. And so we're going to say, if you think you're going to come, get a ticket because you always can sell it at a profit later. So it's a little bit like an NFT without the ugly parts. You know, it's and maybe we should take a cut. There's a marketplace here, I'm sure, that we gotta, if anybody is like in this IPv4 reselling space, I want to talk to you, we can set this up. This is going to make us a lot of money. Lee Berkeley is going to be happy. Oh yeah, she's already happy. Ted, where are you? I have a slide here that makes me think Cisco is talking to aliens. And if that's not the case, you might want to come up quickly and correct my impression here. So this is Ted Hardy, host of this meeting, hero of the hour, walk faster.
So thank you very much, Lars. I will have to correct you that I am not the host of the meeting. Cisco is. It was not my money that got you into the Victoria and Albert last night. I also have to say a quick thank you to Stephanie and Paige, who did all the work to make that incredible, to get us the Hallyu exhibit and that wonderful food. So thank you to them. I was going to get up here and give you a long talk about Cisco's pride in supporting the IETF and its work in keeping the Internet protocol world evolving, and so that the Internet can continue its mission of interconnecting humanity and enabling those activities that benefit from that. But instead, in going into all of that in the abstract, I'm going to pimp our talk tomorrow, which is a very cool example of this. This is about the host tech talk tomorrow, which will be in Richmond 4. It's Project Callisto, which some of my Cisco colleagues will come and tell you about. And it involves taking WebRTC, developed here and at the W3C, and AB1, an open source thing developed by AO Media, and using it in an extraterrestrial collaboration. You space geeks will note the Artemis logo at the bottom. This is part of the Artemis program, NASA's effort to return humankind to the moon. So it's particularly timely because Artemis 1 is on the pad now, due to launch on Monday. So please come to the talk and hear about how we're going to make communication truly extraterrestrial. Thanks very much.
Not so fast, not so fast, not so fast. I have a archival quality badge for you, which is actually not a prop like usual. This is the real thing. So you can take it home now if you like, or we'll ship it to you. But you should hold it now so that Richard can get a nice photo. And thank you very much, Cisco.
You're certainly welcome, and please ship it to me.
Yeah, that's what I expected. So I'm going to go to this. This looks really interesting. I'm still not sure you're going to talk to aliens or not, but I guess we'll all find out tomorrow. Ted already mentioned Secretariat is doing a lot of good work for us. There's a lot of other volunteers and contractors that are really essential to making this meeting happen. As you know, they include the Secretariat, the MeetEcho team, the NOC, the LSE staff, the tools team, and the hackathon support team. So let's give them a hand, and good job this week. It's great. Right, which brings me to the slides that I normally do on autopilot, except I changed them, so I'm going to need to pay attention, which is the report from the chair and the ISG. We're going to go through some participant stats, as usual, the pie diagram, talk about COVID cases at the IETF, what the plan is for future meetings, experiments we're currently running, and a bunch of other stuff that is in the written report that we announced yesterday, I want to say. So it's in, Amy's nodding at me, so good. This is the statistics and the numbers I have not seen. So we have quite a high number of total registrations. That is very good to see. We also have a quite high number of on-site participation. This is more than double of Vienna, and I think we're probably at least a third over Philadelphia. So this is very nice, very good. The remote fee waivers I see are seeing robust use, which is great. That's exactly what we created them for, to be like more open and more inclusive. So thank you to all of you who are spending your time with us remotely and use that. That is good to see. You can pay, right? If you're working for a company, I would encourage you to charge it. But if you need to use a fee waiver, please feel free to do so. We recently started being a little bit more open about the on-site fee waivers, and we're running them, I think, between Colin and me, a little bit as an experiment to figure out, when do we grant them and when don't we grant them. And I got 18 requests. I granted about 11, and Colin got a few fewer ones, but granted a few more. We're still finding our way here. So in my mind, right, I want to see some indication of economic hardship. I want to see, a reason why you can be here in person but not pay the fee. I have a limited amount of them. If your organization running out of travel budget is not counted as economic hardship, I'm very sorry. That's just the way. And then they're not set up to be like a perpetuous thing. So it's a one-off. You're doing good work. We want you here. I'm going to give you one of those, but it's not something that's going to happen very often, I'm afraid. I have 10, so I granted 11 that already took some negotiation. This is about what we can do for the on-site part. But please do ask, right? And don't feel bad if I say no or Colin says no. It's just the way it is. Hackathon, which is incredibly well attended still. We had 452 registrations, a lot on-site, a lot more, I think, again, compared to Vienna and Philadelphia. A lot of projects and a lot of people remote. So this has really become one of sort of the extremely good ways in which the IETF has started to outreach into open source. And I can't thank the people who are running this enough and who are investing in it. And I can't thank the organizations that support it enough. It's really become sort of a core event at the IETF, although we still say it's not officially part of it. It really is. Right, which brings us to the pie chart. We have, a number of people from a number of places as usual. As usual, when we're in Europe or near to Europe, I should say now, I guess. Quite a few participants from Europe. We have the usual mix between the USA and others. So that's pretty nice. China is still much lower, unfortunately, than it used to be, but it's ticking up. I hear it's getting easier for our Chinese participants to travel. That is really good to see. I think we're working on making it easy for you to come to Yokohama. There's a way we're doing invitation letters or the equivalent that you need to come. And I think there will be something in email soon. So please join us when we're closer to you. That would be great. This is the same pie chart split out between on-site and remote. It looks roughly similar. The colors are the same as previously and between those two pie charts, which confused the hell out of me in Vienna. So it's roughly the same split. There's a few other sort of things. You noticeably see China is unsurprisingly much more represented in the remote attendance, although time zones are not in their favor here. But that is really good to see. And I'm hoping that these 18% from China are going to come back to be on site very soon. COVID cases, we've had 4 so far. We've been significantly worse at this time of the week, both in Vienna and in Philadelphia. So that makes us really hopeful that we're going to have a much lower number of reported cases this meeting than last. It sort of seems to indicate that we're sort of on a downswing of the pandemic, which is great. It also means that you guys are really good in general about wearing your masks. If one of us reminds you, don't feel bad, right? We get reminded too, it's just you don't see it. We got to sort of watch each other a little bit. And if you want to provide feedback, there's a survey that Jay is going to send out after the meeting. And we're also going to consult on what our masking and COVID policy should be going forward. We changed it a little bit coming to London. Yokohama is going to have some government restrictions in place, I think still today, but it might change. So we have to have a conversation about what we're going to do there. But I think the general expectation would be that we try to follow the rules that are, the local regulations at the place we're going to over time. It's a conversation between, the community and leadership. So please do send feedback. There are free masks, there are free tests, there are free aspirin and Tylenol, which are helpful even if you don't have COVID. There's many other goodies that are down in the Secretariat area, so if you need something, right? So this whole, I don't have a mask, it doesn't really cut it because you're everywhere and you can just grab one. So please do. And there's free tests, right? And if you do test positive, we do ask that you isolate and email the Secretariat. There's a support email at the bottom. They'll take care of you, so you don't need to worry about anything. Just, please be in your room for a bit and they'll tell you what we want you to do. Experiments, we have not a lot. There's the RFC 8989 NOMCOM eligibility experiment that we chartered the Elegy working group for, which is trying to sort of define new eligibility criteria for the NOMCOM, because the old eligibility criteria before the experiment restricted themselves to only counting people that were here in person And since we had a bunch of meetings where nobody was in person, that wouldn't really have worked if we wanted to have people on the NomCom. This now is charted to sort of come up with a permanent replacement of whatever the RFC was that RFC 8989 is an experiment on. And the expectation is that that would sort of, they met just before this, it would finish hopefully reasonably soon, like in the next weeks or months at the very latest. We had 4 ISG announcements. You got them on IETF Announce if you subscribed. If not, I encourage you to subscribe to it. We had 0 appeals, which is a nice thing. We did an ISG statement. Warren wants to clap. Good job, ISG, and good job, community. I guess we put out a statement on restricting access to IETF IT systems. The summary is that we want to be transparent about what the ISG intends to do if the lawyers come and say, we have a case where we need to basically stop somebody from accessing the IETF IT systems because they pose a legal risk to the organization. So somebody's sharing like BitTorrent links or, you know, things like that. So it needs to be a significant legal risk to the IETF. And the LLC is sort of the home for that, but the LLC decided that the ISG should really be the one that's putting out the guidance here because it obviously impacts the standards process. And so we put out a statement and we basically had this policy of what we're trying to do and how we're going to communicate it. And the intent is, you know, this will never be used until the lawyers come and say you really have to, otherwise it's going to be bad. And there's a lot more stuff at the link into the data tracker that has a bunch of written reports that we did. And there's a blog that Greg is sort of feeding with material. If you have a story for Greg that's IETF related, Greg, where are you? Can you raise your hand? He's there. Talk to him. He's always happy for content. And he's going to feed our blog and social media channels with it so that we are becoming influencers. Right. This is a slide that originated with Gennard, which is my directorate that does reviews for me and that I find really useful. And it's basically Gennard reminding me that they could use more reviewers. And other area directors, when I said that, said my directorate could also use more reviewers. So if you want to become a reviewer, talk to the ADs, or if you know the person who runs the directorate, talk to them. You don't have to have been around for a long time. Gennard specifically, you know, does general reviews where people that are not familiar with the technology read a document to sort of judge whether it is even understandable, for example, right? So there's no requirement that you need to have a gray beard or been around for like 2 decades. So please consider that, you know, even if you're a new participant and you want to maybe read something, and I actually hear that a lot of directorate members value it because they get to see stuff that they wouldn't see as part of their regular IETF participation. And it really sort of broadens up your horizon. And there's some new directorates, so we're going to need some reviewers and members for those too. The one thing I want to mention is you can actually in the data tracker, which we use for managing the reviews, say that, you know, I want to have, you know, 1 assignment a quarter or a week, or, you know, I'm going to be on vacation for 3 months here, so don't give me anything. So you can basically tell us or tell the system what your load is, and that'll be taken into account. And there's no hard feelings if you now need to go away for a bit because of day job or other reasons. So please do consider this. And finally, you might have noticed when you're down in the mezzanine, is it mezzanine? There's some kids there, and that's because we have daycare. Again, we had it in Vienna and we had it in Philadelphia. So we are planning to provide childcare at all the 2023 meetings, and I hear probably going forward, if the community likes it, and it seems so, based on what I heard, and sort of I'm putting this here now because, you know, bringing kids to a trip takes some planning. So you can plan on this now. Like if you want to bring your kids to Yokohama, there's going to be childcare there. I think the aspiration is that it will be in English at least, and not just in Japanese. I see some careful nodding. And it's also sort of available, there's some details on the webpage for a pretty wide age range. So if you have kids and it would make it easier for you to attend, please do take advantage of this. We have D&I, diversity and inclusion money, that is specifically given to the IETF to provide services like this. So you using it is not going to cost us anything additionally. It's there for using it. That's why we provide it, because we want to be able for people to come to us. I'm going to try and plan to use it in Yokohama, but we'll see how that goes because airfares are expensive. And that brings us to Miriam and the IAB and her slides. I see you. Show is yours.
Yeah, and I will be very quick. I only have 2 slides because there's more exciting stuff on the agenda, but I still wanted to come up here to show you my face, especially those people who might not know me. So here I am. And as I'm here, I'm presenting you 2 boring slides. So the first slide is we send a written report. So if you're actually interested in all the details, what the IAB is doing or not doing, you can read the report. There's a link, it's in the proceedings. The only 2 things I wanted to mention here is the recent workshops. So there was a workshop on, I'm starting with the second one here on the slide so you don't get confused. There was a workshop on management techniques and encrypted networks that had just happened recently. You can find all the papers, all the slides, and the recordings online, and there's a report to be written very soon, hopefully. And then there's a workshop coming up very soon, first week of December. You just missed the deadline, I think it was Monday, about environmental impact. So the idea is to figure out how much impact the internet as a whole has. Is there a way to measure it and like make an assessment and then understanding if there's anything we need to do in that space? So these are 2 things that the IAB is working on, just to give you an impression. There's more in the report, or you can also talk to me or any IAB member if you want to learn more. And then my second slide is just, I would like to take the opportunity to say thank you to everybody who serves for this community. The IAB is appointing a lot of people, and we recently reappointed Harald Alvestrand for the ICANN board liaison, Tim April for the ICANN root service evolution review committee, and then Warren Kumari, sorry. Such a nice flow, is stepping in as a new liaison manager. And like, I want to thank you, but like, you have to prove that you're doing good work there. But Alison Mencken has been around for many years, so I really want to thank her for their service. She's just stepped down after many years. She asked us to step down. Okay, and then usually I also take this opportunity to tell you about open calls and things we need from you, but there's nothing on right now. But please keep your eyes open. The next thing that will be on our agenda is to appoint somebody for the ISOC Board of Trustees. So please keep your eyes open about the call for feedback for the candidates there. Thanks.
Thank you, Miriam. And while Colin makes its way up to the stage, I'll point out the IAB is obviously going to be on stage later for open mic, and you can ask questions about anything that Miriam talked about or anything else IAB related. And Colin's going to talk a lot about things that start with A and have the NR letters next to them.
All right, thank you, Lars. I'm Colin Perkins. I'm the IETF chair. It's very good to be back. It's been a few years since I've been here, and I have to say this room seems a lot bigger than it does on Meet Echo. One of the things we organize in the IETF is the Applied Networking Research Prize. This is designed to reward the best recent results in applied networking research. It's designed to reward interesting new research ideas that might be relevant to this community and to the internet going forward. It's designed to reward upcoming people and interesting people who may not otherwise be able to come to these events and who we think may be making an interesting contribution to the development of internet-related research. We made 3 awards earlier today. I'm very pleased to announce that the awards for those who missed the IETF open meeting this morning went to Gautam Akiwate for a talk on and some work on the risks of domain hijacking due to registrar practices. They went to Corinne Caff for her ethnographic work looking at the organizational culture of the IETF. And they went to Daniel Wagner for his work on DDoS attack detection and mitigation. If you missed the talks, the recordings are on the IETF YouTube channel. The slides and the links to the papers for the awards are on the IETF webpage. They were 3 absolutely fantastic talks, so if you missed them this morning, I would very much encourage you to go and watch those talks. The Applied Networking Research Prize relies on your nominations. The nominations for the awards next year are open now. The nomination deadline is the 18th of November, at the end of next week. So if you're aware of any interesting applied networking research, any people who should be deserving of an award, please do nominate them. And we're accepting both third-party nominations where you nominate someone else and first-party nominations where you nominate your own work. So if you know of any good work, please do nominate. Final thing I have to say, we are very pleased to offer travel grants for the IETF to bring people from underrepresented groups to the IETF meetings and the co-located IETF sessions. Very great thanks to our sponsors for the travel grants, to Akamai, to Comcast, to Cloudflare, and to Netflix for providing that support. We've got a number of people here this time. I've spoken to several of them. If I haven't had a chance to speak to you, please come find me. I think this is a very valuable program. Please do consider making use of it. And if you are interested in sponsoring these awards so we can bring more people, please do get in touch. Thank you. And with that, I guess we pass over to Rich.
Yes, we're handing over to Rich, who's making his way to the stage. As you know, the NomCom is in full swing at the moment. They're doing interviews this week and meeting candidates and community members to gather feedback. So if you haven't had a chance to send your feedback to the NomCom, I will tell you now that you could do so immediately if you want when you're bored here. And Rich is going to tell you a lot more about it. Thanks.
Which is the page down, next page button?
Cursor right.
Cursor right. Okay, hi. We did start late for a variety of circumstances. We think we'll end on time. And that came at the expense of pretty much every step of the process. Previously, you had like 6 weeks to do the questionnaire. This time it was 2.14, right, 15 days. We're doing the interviews this week as much as possible, AMAP. As Laura said, get your feedback in. If you go to the NomCom page, you'll see a link about it. Or come see me. I'm happy to take in-person feedback and let your name be known or not, as you prefer. We've had instances of both. So the ISG asked me to, I got a note from them, asking me to talk about some of the technical hiccups that occurred. Wait a minute. Get my good side. And reassure everyone, I want to reassure that there were some hiccups, we resolved them, and just by coincidence, oops.
Keep talking.
Sorry, just by coincidence, I happen to be on almost every slate, so I hope everybody's reassured now. More seriously, as I said, we got a late start, questionnaires weren't ready. Some of the messages that went out to the candidates was, boy, I really blew it, was confusing because it said your questionnaire is below, or in one place it said your questionnaire is going to be attached, and that'll be fixed in the data tracker in the future release. It is very hard to test data tracker changes for NomCom. It doesn't happen very often, unlike drafts and that standard workflow. There was a new version of OpenSSL, always a danger. Private key upload didn't work until Robert and I got on a Zoom call and we fixed it. What that meant is every comment you send to NomCom is encrypted, and the key to decrypt it, or the key to decrypt the encryption key, is only shared among the NomCom members so that nobody else can see. You know, when we say your information is confidential, including your questionnaire responses, that's also confidential. We didn't lose any feedback. We held things in the moderation queue until we got that all fixed, and we did some tests and it works. The flow from AMS to the data tracker for the registrations, getting people who had registered and qualified automatically entered, that was a manual process. People may remember I said, oh, we've had like 12 more people or 20 more people who qualified. That's going to now be automatic in the future. There was an appeal when I had to disqualify someone. That added some delay to the process. All this will be in the report that you can not read at the end of the next meeting. It was reasonable to make the appeal. That also took some time. We did have a backup plan and so on. There's ambiguities in the RFC that controls the nomination process, 8713, errata or filed to make sure all of those things are cleared up in the future. Some implications of that RFC also weren't well documented, like the repeatability of the process, the format by which the names come out, the verifiability of the voting volunteers. We did end up with a verified process that at least 3 people verified, and so on. I sent out several mails to candidates warning them about the deadline. I was told that some people never got the mails because they have a filter that ignores their names on BCC. Don't think that's my fault. I did also send out announce mails to IETF Announce, warning people about the deadlines, and got a couple messages saying, why are you sending this spam to all of the IETF? So I guess you can't win. There was concern, as I said, feedback was lost that didn't happen. Mail aliases and SPF DKIM do not interact very well with mailing lists. Wow, do they not interact well at all? So we had to convert things from an alias to a mailing list that's not archived and all of this, but all of that is handled. Now back to the thing I really wanted to say, which is thanks to the people, Robert, Glenn, Jenny, and so on, Glenn from AMSL. Could not do the job without them. They're amazing and full of energy and like, do you need this now? Do you need this today? Do you need this tomorrow? The voting volunteers, well, never mind the analogy. People are really very dedicated. We had meetings where we went through the questionnaires. We had meetings, video meetings, where we went through the list of questions we would ask all the nominees. Lots of points were seriously considered, and there was very reasoned discussion from across the voting volunteers, and they are doing a really excellent job. Listening to the interviews, I try to sit on as many as I can. The discussions there and the interviews are very thoughtful. The candidates, for the most part, are giving very thoughtful answers. And finally, the whole IETF community, having been on the losing end of things multiple times, I know that one of the things the nominating committee takes very seriously is community feedback. So please give us community feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. This is the NomCom chair is really probably the most thankless job in the entire organization. So we're very happy you took it on.
Mask.
Oh yeah, and thank you for picking up your mask too. So thank you very much again. Right, this is really a critical role, and thank you to all the NomCom volunteers. Can I actually, sort of those of you who are in the room who are on the NomCom as voting members, could you like stand up and wave your hand so that everybody who doesn't know you already by face can recognize you in the hallway and you can directly talk to them if you want to. So there's one person back here, there's a lot of them. Thank you. You're also doing a thankless and critical job. So we all rely on your good choices. So make them. Right, which brings us to the LLC, which is first Jay Daly, the executive director, who is getting up, and then Jason Livingood, who could probably also already come up, that we have a smooth handover. This is the slide deck that has all the logos. I'm just going to give this away now.
Hello, so I'm Jay Daly, I'm the IETF Executive Director, or the Mask Police, as I think many of you have come across for the last few days. Thank you for cooperating, and thank you also to all of those people who have come up thanking me for doing that. We have a lot of people who are really quite very strongly in favour of this, so that's worked out quite well. So first of all, thank you again to our IETF115 host, Cisco. They stepped in at the last minute for this one. They were very, very helpful. They let us organise so many of things, and altogether I think they provided us with a fantastic meeting and an excellent social event. So thank you very much, Cisco. I'd like to go through our sponsors. So we have a bunch of sponsors who provide us equipment and services for free or for relatively low cost anyway. So we have Cisco and Juniper, who provide us extraordinary large amounts of equipment entirely for free, which is what the NOC uses to run the network with and things. We have Cisco, who provide us WebEx, which we use for interim meetings and various other video conferencing things. Cloudflare, we are part of their Galileo program, and each time we ask Cloudflare, can we have another service for free? Cloudflare say thank you, but yes, of course, and give us another service for free. So that's going very nicely. Scout APM is a monitoring service that we use for our for database performance and for our application performance. And somebody will have to tell me what Sentry does for us, because I wasn't expecting that. But thank you very much, Sentry. So thank you very much to those sponsors. And also onto our Gold Diversity and Inclusion sponsors. We'll do the thanks to all of the sponsors at the end of this bit. So for diversity and inclusion, as you know, that pays for our fee waivers, that pays for our childcare and various other things. So at the gold level, which is a large amount of money, thank you, we have Akamai, Cisco and Huawei. Then for our gold sustainability sponsor now, we have Oracle, which is very helpful. You may be aware we've now been through a process to discuss how we measure our carbon emissions from meetings and to look at what forms of offsets we might do. The plan is that for the meetings next year, we'll be hopefully engaged in some form of offset scheme, so that we'll be doing what we can, well, what we can actually means not traveling, but we'll be doing anything that we can to mitigate the effect of traveling in that way. So we're aiming for that. And then thank you to our other sponsors. We have our silver sponsor for running code, that's Meta, who have just joined us. We signed that 2 days ago. That was excellent. Thank you very much, Meta. And then the bronze sponsors for diversity inclusion. You can see how organizations are picking their alignment with us, which is excellent. Comcast, ICANN, Identity Digital and VeriSign. And then we have the bronze running code sponsor as well, ICANN. So thank you very much to all of our sponsors that have made this meeting possible. Thank you. And then finally to British Telecom, our connectivity sponsor, who give us the circuits for free, and our local supporter there, help with visa letters and these sort of things. We can't do this without these type of organisations, and it's marvellous. There's something about people's support for the IETF that means that whichever city we go to, we have an engineer is able to go to talk to their manager, and the manager says yes to $30,000 worth of lines being put in immediately for us. It's remarkable, absolutely remarkable. So thank you very much, British Telecom as well. Thank you. I'll go through the volunteers a little bit more. So we had a code sprint on Saturday, and the volunteers are here from those who participated. Thank you. We have a bunch of volunteers from the NOC, and as you may have heard me mention before, those are supported by their employers, and their employers give us considerable amount of their time to help with the NOC, and it's fantastic. It makes a big difference. Here we have a problem as we're setting up the network, and Joe Clark from Cisco is on the phone to a senior engineer who talks to another engineer, and the people in the running the hotel IT, drop dead from surprise because they've never seen that before. So it's very, very useful to us. Works very well. So thank you very much to those volunteers. There's always a lot of clapping in my bit. Okay, so then we move on to the entire hardworking team. So we have the secretariat, number of people here from the secretariat. We have the NOC line speed employees, the ones who come and put the stuffs up for us and things. We have the Meet Echo team, of course, who I don't know if you know, but Simon from Meet Echo came a couple of days late because he was still finishing his class that he teaches at university. Meet Echo is an incredible organisation. I'm glad we work with them. On the tool side, we have our 3 people from Painless Security who work with us, and then on the LLC, of course, we have the staff alongside me. So thank you very much to all of the people that are employed here as part of this whole team to make this work for us. Thank you. And in case you need a photograph of all of us, I've lost roughly 28 pounds since that was taken, so I've got a new one coming very shortly. Thank you. And then finally, I don't know if you know that the way that our meetings work is that we have these companies who are our global hosts and global supporters. So they sign a long contract with us, generally 6 or 9 years. They pay us a fee every year towards this, and then they get an opportunity to host a meeting. Well, the global hosts do. The global supporters just pay us because they think it's the right thing to do. We meet with these people at every meeting, and we sit down and we talk to them. We ask them, what value are you getting from your sponsorship? What more could we do? And the answer always is, we're doing it because this is the right thing to do. We want to support the IETF. Don't worry about the value. Oh, and the coffee carts are lovely. So really, I can't do this. We have just a generation of people in the right positions within these companies that really understand the value of the IETF and make that contribution to us without asking for anything. So thank you very much, all of you. That's what enables our meetings to take place. So IETF 116 will be in Yokohama. That's hosted by WIDE. They will come and do a little presentation about that, so I won't talk much about that. Future meetings, locations and venues. So as you've seen, we have now announced 122 Bangkok just yesterday. So we have, I think on that list, we have Vancouver, Bangkok and Madrid that have all been rescheduled from COVID times. We are with 119 close to something there, we think, and we'll be able to announce that quite soon. That's an exciting one coming up. And with Europe, we're still arguing every day about what we're going to, the particular issues with that one, but we're very close, hopefully, to getting that one as well. Okay, so we should have that full pipeline filled quite shortly and see where we go from there. So onto the IETF endowment. So for those of you who are not aware, we have an endowment. It was created to support the IETF and its activities for the long term to give us financial independence, so that we end up with a diversity of income. While we have those companies that sponsor us for our meetings, while we have money from the Internet Society, all of this, it relies on 2 or 3 small markets, comparative globally. The domain name side from Internet Society, equipment manufacturer and services operators. So we're looking to diversify income by receiving as much money as we can, and having that as an investment enables us to continue throughout whatever may happen in the ups and downs coming. And as I think a number of us are seeing, it looks like there's a potential down coming. So this is what we're trying to do, is prepare for these sort of things. So if you'd like to donate, you can do so there. And we do make an effort to thank people who very much who donate to that. For the on the endowment, the Internet Society have a special matching program that is lasting for until 2027, I believe, so that if any money that we get is matched at 2-to-1 initially, and then we matched at 1-to-1 initially. So now's the time to give us money because it's very much matched. And we want to thank our flagship donors, of course, ARIN, who have given us large sums, the Internet Society continue to give us a very large sum of money, RIPE and LACNIC, our benefactor donor, for their leadership gifts. And then we have several individuals who gave us money this year, which is very good of them. Thank you very much. That's really helps with us. So thank you to all of our donors. Thank you. And then over to Jason.
All right, thank you, everybody. Jason Lovingood for the IETF LLC board. Let's get started. These are the current serving board members. Maya sends her regrets. She is home with 2 sick children, which is never fun. So we wish her and her kids the best. And the NOMCOM this year will be seeking to replace Peter, who is term limited. So Peter's done a great job, big shoes to fill. So I'm looking forward to that. Any feedback that folks have on those nominees is appreciated. These are the upcoming board meeting times and dates. We've adjusted what was supposed to be a meeting this week to be next week. And you can see them through the first quarter of next year. All of them are scheduled for the year. You can find them on the website. So what are some things that we're working on currently or in the recent past? Following IETF 114, a few of us worked together to publish a PDF document, and we blogged, put it on the blog about the COVID mitigations and the numbers we saw and so on. And we had a number of other standards dev and other industry orgs reach out and say that they thought that was interesting and, informed some of the things they were doing. But we continued to discuss what the future meeting approaches may be and, how that will be evolving. And as Jay mentioned, that'll be the subject of some of the survey questions that follow this meeting. And also, as Jay mentioned, we continue to focus on fundraising progress. We've got this wonderful matching program right now, and we are really doing our best to try to encourage donors. And these take a long time to cultivate, and folks that are usually willing to write checks of that size, don't do it, at the spur of the moment. They give it quite a lot of thought, which you'd expect. But we've got a great matching program, just to keep banging that drum. So looking for some progress there. And thankfully, with the IETF Trust, Glenn does not have COVID this meeting. So we are having an advantage now that we're back in person to have a joint meeting between the Trust and the LLC. And in particular, since they are moving into this new corporate structure, talking about how we can better support them, what funding needs they have for next year and so on. So that's continuing. Of course, we're in the midst of 2023 budgeting, and you'll hear more about that at some point soon, and as we lock down that budget. And then, of course, there's some more higher level long-term questions. We always continue focusing on things like, are there gaps that emerge post ISOC spinoff? We did the IASA 2 retrospective last year, or earlier this year maybe it was. We continue to look at things if there are gaps and how do we fill them. But really the bigger questions are sort of these last three, and they all group together. What's the new normal for hybrid meeting attendance numbers, and how do we adapt? And that really means, how do the contracts for venues adapt, and what sort of room size commitments or block commitments are there, and what do the cost implications look like? What are the potential cancellation fees for changes or reductions if there are further spikes in the virus and so on? And so those are the questions that I think we're all trying to think about, and they do have cost implications, which we'll see shortly. So here are the implications of some of those things. So putting aside for a moment, which I'll come back to, investments, the on-site meeting registrations were much lower than forecast for this year. And I think if we go back to 1 year ago from now, nobody really knew what was going to happen with COVID. We had to make some educated guesses. And some of those guesses, were not as, close to what the reality ended up being. But of course, if any of us were really great with, forecasting what would happen with COVID, we probably, would have made other, investment decisions and what have you. So that was, I think, the big challenge. And we're trying to, I think, look forward to next year and the years beyond that, particularly the years that we're signing venue contracts for. What does that mean about room block sizes and other sort of commitments that go along with that? So we'll see what happens, and it'll be really interesting to see the next few years. As Lars pointed out, really good numbers this meeting. That was a relief for us, but we'll see what happens. And of course, in terms of investments, we're not looking to sell any investments in the near term, and so these are just sort of paper changes, but obviously the global stock markets have had some challenges lately, what with a war conflict in Ukraine and so on. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully world economies take a turn for the better, but it does look like certainly the winter will be a tough time in the next few months. And then lots of ways that you can contact us. Don't hesitate to reach out at any time. And that's all for the LLC portion. Thank you.
Thank you. And the LLC will be back on stage later for open mic. And we're going to talk a little bit about Alexis Rossi, the new Risky, coming to the stage to introduce herself. So as you know, we had this restructuring of the RFC editor process. And with that came a new position and a new title and a new hire, and that is Alexis. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. I'm really loving this Risky thing because it goes very well, Risky Rossi. And I think everyone else is going to have to live up to that after me. Were you as risky as the Risky Rossi? Let's try to say that 3 times fast. So I thought I would say just a little bit about my background and who I am so you can kind of get to know me. I started out as a cookbook editor way back in the day, and then fell in love with the internet, and joined a place called Clarinet back in 1996. That was one of the first news aggregators on the net, old enough that it was still being published in Usenet news groups. And then eventually kind of worked my way through a couple of other things and ended up at the Internet Archive, which is a digital library nonprofit that you can get to at archive.org. And the thing that most people know them for is the Wayback Machine. So at the archive, I've been there for about 20 years, and I'm still there in a part-time capacity. At the archive, I originated a website that is supposed to have one web page for every book ever published, which is called openlibrary.org. I ran the Wayback Machine for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, something like that. I'm in there somewhere. I went to library school, and now I'm kind of the head librarian for all of the media collections there. So that's television and radio and podcasts and movies and audio and software. If you have any questions about any of that, I'm always happy to talk about it because I'm still there and I'm like their favorite mouthpiece. So starting here, I'm trying to bring some of that archival and library and editorial experience into this new role that I think is still kind of a little bit ill-defined, and we're still sort of trying to figure out what that role means now under the new editor model. So the things I'm starting with, the things I'm working on currently, are a revamp of the RFC-editor.org website. That's just in its infancies. If you have any feedback you'd like to provide about that, let me know. I have sent out a document to a small number of people, and that will be continuing as we go through the research phase, and you'll be asked for more input. Also working on our archival agreements, making sure that there are full copies of the RFCs that you all work so hard on in other institutions, and that's something that we do for archival safekeeping, and getting a couple more of those set up. So basically that's where we are right now, and I've only been doing this for about 2 months, and I would really love to hear from you. So I'm gonna have some office hours tomorrow from 1 to 3:30 at the RPC desk down by registration. Come by, say hello, talk to me about any of the things I just said, ask me questions about anything you want, give me information, help me get acclimated here. I am still only about 60% on the acronyms at this point. So it's nice to meet all of you, and I hope to speak to every single one of you eventually. All right, thanks.
Thank you, and I'm very happy. I think we made a very good hire here. Your acronym is way cooler than Olaf's acronym was when he was the acting RFC series editor. I'll let you contract that on your own. So thank you very much, Alexis, for saying hi. Glenn is up with the trust. Take it away.
Hi there, I'm Glenn Dean, and I'm the IETF Trust Chair, now COVID-free. So I'm going to start out by saying I'm going to take on a challenge. The IAB said their slides were the most boring. Challenge accepted. I'm about to talk to a bunch of engineering experts about trust stuff, which is all legal things. So I think this may be the most boring of all. So the first that I'd like to point out is the trust is made up of 5 trustees. They're appointed, 3 of them from the NOMCOM, 1 from the IASG, and 1 from the ISOC Board of Trustees. I'm the chair. Kathleen Moriarty, who couldn't be here for this IETF, is the treasurer. Joel Halpern, he's around, so if you see him in the halls, say hi. Stefan Wagner is also here, those trustees. And Victor Kersing is a trustee. I think he's around. I saw him yesterday. So if you don't know what the IETF Trust does, don't feel bad. When I first started coming to the IETF many years ago, I would come to the plenary and the trust would come up and talk about what the trust had done that time. And they would often say, we haven't been sued by anybody recently. And that was awesome. But I didn't quite ever understand really why. And I didn't understand what the trust did. And then I somehow found myself as a trustee, and I somehow found myself eventually as chair, and I guess I had to figure it out. So let me try to impart a little bit of what I learned along the journey. The trust manages IP assets for the IETF. And why that's important is that the standards development process generates a lot of stuff. The contributions that we all make and that we're all making today sitting in this room, the photographs being taken, the video being taken, and the comments on the microphone are all contributions to the IETF trust and to the IETF. And so ultimately the IETF trust takes care of managing and protecting these various things for the community. And so there's a list of the things right there. It's a bunch of software licenses. It's like copyrights on photographs and that kind of stuff. But it's important and it enables the IETF to function. This is sort of the big picture of how it helps the IETF develop standards. So, you know, we all come together and we write drafts and we make comments on microphones. Those are all IETF contributions. And those are going to two places. One of them goes into the IETF itself, right? It goes into all of us. We sit in our meeting rooms, we work on our various working groups. Those contributions go in there, the ideas go in there, the thoughts, right? The things we make. There's another part that a lot of people kind of sort of go yes to and don't really understand, which is the rights that are granted under RFC 5378. Those grants are what enable the rest of the process to actually happen, because if you hadn't noticed, you also didn't need to go off and sign off a lot of documentation with your lawyers before you can come into the room and hang out with everybody. That's because the IETF trust was created. And the whole way it integrates with the development process is really elegant. And you got to read the documentation and the RFCs that set it up to really, these things are beautiful. They were done back in 2005. But in short, the trust takes care of those granted rights. It tells the IETF, yep, we got this stuff. Go ahead and use it in your development process. The IETF goes off and creates RFCs, which it publishes. And then it goes, IETF trust, here is the copyrights on all those RFCs we've produced. We take that and we license it to the entire world. And we don't charge a fee. We really don't charge a fee to anybody for any of this stuff. But we say, world, come and use the stuff the IETF produced. The contributions, the RFCs, all that kind of stuff. And it's really easy. Click here, read it, go ahead and go work. And it's a really powerful process. And I'm very proud to be part of that part of the process and help enable it, because the IETF is really cool. So updates since IETF114. The trust took on one new protocol badge. Thank you for Bob Briscoe and who signed it over. The L4S protocol badge is part of the stuff we now protect, and it's available on the IETF protocols badge page. You can take and show your support for L4S. We've had a change in our legal representation. Thank you, Biddle Law, for the many years you've served the IETF trust, and you continue to serve the rest of the IETF. Thank you, Brad and Vigdis in particular. They really helped during the ASTA 2 transition to handle updating the trust documents. And a lot of the software licenses, or sorry, not software licenses, but the copyright licenses and all the stuff that you used for these things like protocol badges, Vigdis wrote. So thank you. And we now have a new representation. Andy Updegrove from Gessimer Updegrove will be representing the trusts as our lawyer going forward. There's a couple other things here. Let me jump in. We had a report where there was an error in the trust FAQs on our website. And so we took that in, we took a look at it, and gosh, they were right. What had happened was at some point, 2 RFC references had got swapped, and it would be way too hard to explain which one went where. So what we simply did was we put up an FAQ update on our announcement page, and it has both text, and you can go there and see which one got swapped out for the other one. Did I skip that page? Oh, okay. One of the things we've been doing is restructuring the IETF trust from a Virginia trust over into a not-for-profit corporation. This has largely been done because there's been some problems emerge in the trusts operating. One of the big problems was that insurance that we have to carry on our trustees, because if you're a trustee, you carry a lot of personal liability because you literally are signing up to have great legal responsibility for these assets. You carry a lot of legal liability around you, and so we carry insurance on everybody. The trouble is we can't increase that amount of insurance. The marketplace is very difficult for trusts to get insurance. And so after some analysis, we said, well, one way to solve that is to convert trustees from trustees to directors on a board of a corporation. They're both not-for-profits. The trust is currently, the new one will be too. But this is a huge problem. And it was a lot of people have said, I won't be a trustee because of that liability. And a lot of trustees worry about this. That's work that's continuing to 2023. I'll show you another slide where we're at right now. If you want to find out more information about this stuff and the consultation process we went through, it was about a 2-month thing we did earlier this year. You can go to the trustee website and there's videos and stuff like that. And you can see the whole thing play out, discussions and how we worked through it and thought through the process. One update, when we did that process, we had been told by the state of Delaware that they were totally cool with us calling the new corporation the IETF Trust, which we thought, okay, it's a trust, that's going to be a corporation. That can be a little confusing. That's why we asked permission up front. When we actually went and filed the articles of incorporation, they came back and said, what? That's crazy. You can't have a corporation. It's a trust. Those are two different things. So we went, oh, okay. Well, we did ask you, but all right. So we've chosen a new name. It's actually called the IETF, Intellectual Property Management Corporation. I tried to just call it, IETF IP, but people thought there might be a little confusion with IETF IP and IP. I don't know. Maybe, we could have called it V next. I don't know. Anyhow, so that's the name. But the way we're going to thread this needle is we're going to take we have taken the name IETF Trust and blended them back into the bylaws and the other materials around the corporation. And so what's going to really happen is that we as the community can continue calling us the IETF Trust. The documentation we have will refer to it, and even a corporate article material will refer to it. It says the IETF Trust, also known as this other thing. So we're never really going to call it this name amongst flight company. We're always going to be the trust. So this is where we're at in the process. We did the community consultation back between May and July. We decided to go proceed forward. We filed the paperwork to go off and do it. That was done just after IETF115. So the next thing that's happening right now is we're finalizing this corporate spinning up. We're dealing with things like, hey, you can't call yourself the IETF Trust Corporation because that's too confusing. But we're hopeful that's going to get done very soon. And right after that, what we're going to do next is apply for the IRS 501c3 status, which if you're familiar with IRS tax law, which is an awesome thing to play, hang around in, that gets us our not-for-profit status. Once that is approved, the next things all are going to happen in parallel. We're going to take the assets from the old thing, give them the new thing, and say, job well done. If you would like to hear more about this fascinating topic, tomorrow from 1 to 2 p.m. down in GMT1, come and talk to me. And there'll be some other trustees hanging out there. We'd love to hear from you and chat and discuss what's been going on. I will leave up finding GMT1 up to you. I had to find it the other day for a meeting. It's a challenge. So that's a little bit of fun. I don't know how to get, you'll find us. And finally, if you want to find us, just contact us. There's 2 ways here. Send us email or visit the website and it'll tell you how to get a hold of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. And I will point out that if you remember this overview slide, it had the arrow going from the trust to the planet. There's no $ attached to that. And that is one of the things that makes us unique because we license this stuff out freely and widely because we want to be our stuff to be used by everybody, right? Since we're amongst friends here, I will point out in the ITU, there's an arrow going back from the planet to the ITU that I think has $30 million on it or something like that. So just, if you wonder why Jay is asking for money, that's one of the reasons, because we don't have that arrow from the planet coming our way quite as boldly as some other organizations do. Right, which brings us to the IETF115 preview in Yokohama. Is Asai-san or Nakamura-san here and wants to say something? I see somebody running over there. Thank you very much for making us go there again. It's one of my favorite places to come back to. You got a lot of applause when we announced it in Philadelphia, and I think you're going to get a lot of applause now. Thanks for having us.
Okay. Thank you. So thank you, and I'm Osam from the Wide Project board members, and I want to say that thank you very much. I'm very happy to supporting that IETF, and everybody invited Japan, Yokohama, and the next year. And I guess everybody know the Yokohama, so the one things I want to share of the related to the next IETF. So I want to introduce Asai-kun. Asai-san is, one of the board members of the wide project, and also he has been working for the IETF NOC members. So that if you have any, ask anything, that please contact to the Asai-san. He's the chair of the steering group of the local host, Yokohama. Okay.
So good afternoon, everybody. I'm Hirochika Asai. Call me Panda. I think everybody call me Panda in the NOC, IETF NOC. So we are very excited to host the next IETF meeting in Yokohama, and it should be a productive meeting. So we're gonna do our best in the Yokohama meeting. So the Yokohama meeting will be held from the 25th March the next year. And it's been 7 years since the last Yokohama meeting. So I think there are several things has been changed from the previous Yokohama meeting. So but the meeting venue will be the new Pacifico Conference Hall that is called the Pacifico North. That is the north, and then the old Pacifico Yokohama meeting space. So that is a very nice space. And the next time, it is spring. The last time there was a November, but this time it is spring. So it's very good season for the cherry blossom. So I think you can enjoy the cherry blossom there, of course, as well as your productive meeting there. So as mentioned by the last, we have several restrictions. We still have several restrictions for the entry to Japan, but the restriction is lifted now. So I think many of you, many countries has a visa exemption now. So please, we're gonna share the information later before the meeting. But I think in March you can enter to Japan easily, I hope. And yeah, so yeah. That's all from me. So you have 2 days more in London. So please have your nice and productive meeting here, and see you in Yokohama. Thank you.
Yeah, also those company list is a local sponsorship for the next IETF. So thank you very much for those companies.
Thank you very much for having us, and Jay is going to have a whole other set of logos on the slides next time, I think. So it's really good to see that there's this broad support from the local industry as well. Well, many of them are global companies, but they're based in Japan, and I'm certainly going to look forward to like spending some extra days and looking at some cherry blossoms and like maybe going to Keio and giving a talk and stuff like that. So it's going to be a great meeting. I'm really excited, in case you couldn't tell. Which brings us to another thing that I'm really excited about, which is the Jonathan B. Postel Award. I actually used to be a student at ISI during the time when John was still there in the corner office on the 11th floor, I want to say. And it was really, at the time, I didn't quite, it was John, he was always there, he was excellent. But it's sort of only after a certain number of years do you realize how impactful he really was. And so an award was created in his name to honor somebody who's done great service to the broader internet community. And we have a very deserving awardee tonight. And I think I have somebody coming up, and I want to say it's Andrew Sullivan, but I'm not quite sure. And Andrew is coming, so I wasn't wrong. This is a nice initiative by iStock. I'm glad you're doing it again. I think we were looking forward to doing this after a little gap.
Yeah, we had a little gap last year. So the Internet Society, every year, I'm Andrew, by the way. I work for the Internet Society. The Internet Society presents this award every year for service on behalf of the community, and the goal of this award is, to recognize people who have contributed significantly to the development of the internet and the deployment of the internet all over the world. And it's named, of course, in honor of John Postel, who died a number of years ago. Last year there was a gap because the committee who make this award are not, like, it's not me and the staff. Instead, it's a committee of volunteers who are prior awardees of this, and there was some development of additional well-expressed criteria, and then every year they will use those criteria to award to make this award. This year, I am very pleased to present this award to George Sadowski, who is here with us tonight. George has George has a very long history on the internet and in working with the internet. But a particular note that I want to raise here are his contributions to the development of the internet around the world, connectivity, and in particular the development of the INET program which was sponsored by the Internet Society early in the Internet Society's life. So George, I would like to invite you to come up and say a few words. While George is coming up, I will say, normally we present also a shiny crystal globe and so on, and there's a monetary award that goes with this. But George lives not very far from our office in Reston, and it seemed like the worst example of trombone routing to bring it here in order to get him to take it back home. So we thought that we would forego that this time. So George, thank you so much. Okay, I'll take your hand. You can have the photographer.
Okay, congratulations. Thank you, guys. Pardon?
It's first or right if you have slides.
Okay, I don't. Thank you very much. I'm really honored by this award, and even the more so that I was chosen on the basis of my relationship with my peers and their assessment of contributions. But I think it's important to note that these workshops would not have been possible had it not been for many other volunteers. We had the workshops ran for 10 years, and we had about 15 to 30 volunteers teaching, administering, logistics, etc., for each year. These people gave up 2 to 3 weeks and maybe more of their lives. They developed curricula offline. They did a number of other things offline. They looked at student applications, etc. And actually, there may be some volunteers here. I don't know. The person I can think of is Randy Bush, who may be here and may not be. I don't know. Just as a historical note, it's worth remembering that in 1992, when the first workshop was being conducted, Randy was running connectivity to several African countries through 64 kb leased lines that terminated in his bedroom in Portland, Oregon, and then were connected to the internet. That was the state of affairs, and one of the tracks we taught was how to connect your country to the internet. And one of the ways which was used was a protocol which I'm sure doesn't exist anymore, SLIP, which allowed dial-up connections to the internet. This was the situation we were faced with, and that was a time when digital bits went over analog lines and owned by telephone companies, which a situation which is totally reversed today. So those people deserve a lot of credit. So why did we do this? We didn't conceptualize it quite at this time, like this at the time, but I think several of us, Randy for sure, I also, had experience with working in developing countries and doing technology transfer. And when you went into a developing country, I would always go to the university to see what kind of technical resources there were. The university library could often be fit in one room, much, much smaller than this room. And the technical books might fit on 2 bookshelves, and the networking and computing bits might fit on 1 shelf or less. So there was clearly a lack of information about developments and a lack of communication with colleagues. We saw we saw evidence that there were problems that these people were facing in all countries, and not only in technology, in agricultural, in industry, et cetera. And one of the definitions of information poverty is, you have a problem in these countries, and you don't understand exactly what kind of a problem it is. You don't know whether the problem is being met by anybody else in any other place. You don't know how to find out. You can't find out. Even if you knew, you probably couldn't communicate with them because you could use postal mail,
or you could use telex, 75 to 110 bits per second. That was the original email. And even if you knew who they were, you couldn't contact them, and you didn't have a way of getting the information you needed, and even getting the confidence that that your problem had a solution, you could find it. So we saw the internet, the emergence of the internet, as a way of breaking down those communication barriers. And that was the motivation, and by God, it worked. The results were, we had about 1,500 participants from almost all developing countries. We did not succeed in getting anybody from North Korea. And I'm sure we missed some of the smaller island countries in the Pacific. But by and large, we got people from all over the world, even especially the Russian, the former Soviet Union countries. George Soros contributed a lot to us to make that happen. We developed world leaders in telecom and in the internet. I think there are 4 of our students became ministers of communication and information technology. 2 of them, well, one of them, Tariq Kamal in Egypt, was a major force in developing the internet in Africa. Nee Quainer from Ghana, an equally powerful force. Tariq's no longer with us, but Nee is working today. And Nee didn't become a minister because he thought it was probably better for him to stay with his own company. He was asked to become one, and he turned it down. So, there are also people in the private sector, in NGOs, who were leaders now in their countries, but were our students. And they developed a network early on, a network of email, which they, as soon as they could have it, by which they reinforced their own concerns and solved problems. And that email network grew very substantially over the course of the workshops. So ISOC played a critical role in that. The idea came in 1992 in Kobe. I remember going to Larry Landweber and saying, look, we can do this. We can develop this, we can get people, we can train them, we can send them back. And it was an ill-formed concept. It had no guarantees of success. Larry said, here's $50,000, you raise the rest and do it. And we did it. And the result of that success, we continued for the next 8 or 9 years. The Internet Society quickly took the program under its own aegis and provided the support and the encouragement and the backing that was required for us to continue. In 1992, there was almost no place that you could go in the world to get formal training in Internet if you were in a developing country. We phased out the workshops in 2001 when there had been enough critical mass formed in the regions and in a lot of the countries so that they were no longer necessary. So this was one of the more important things that I've done in my life, I think, and I really am glad I did it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, George.
Okay.
Thank you, George. Thank you, George. This is very well deserved, and I think the sort of spirit from the early days of the internet, it's still around, right? Sort of this sort of doing creative things to solve problems, to bring people together, and thinking broadly, and just bringing different people in is I think what's still around, and it's good that it is. Right, which brings me to another slide that has George on it. You said you didn't have any. I guess it was Andrew's. Anyway, so this is a very nice photo of you, though, by the way. I'm glad we get to show it. And that brings us to the IAB open mic. So if you're an IAB member and if you're here, please come up. I see Miria, I see some others. And if you have a question for the IAB, there's a QR code. If you could scan it so that we can put you into the virtual queue if you're remote. And if you want to ask a question to the IAB or any of the other open mics later on, you know, you can get into the queue and then we will call you and ask you to unmute and show us your video if you like. And so far the queue is empty and Mira's going to take over.
Hi again. And we will do a round of introductions. You also can see everybody on the slides. But we will keep the mask on in good tradition here. So if you actually want to see more of the IAB without mask, the full face, you have to ask some questions because that's the occasion where we will take off the mask. But we do a round of introductions. We start with you, David. Are you listening to me? Yes. No, he doesn't. David, hi.
David Skenazy, Internet Architecture Enthusiast.
Mallory Nodal.
Colin Jennings.
Jiankang Yao.
Colin Perkins, IETF Chair.
Lars Eckert, IETF Chair.
Jari Ark, IAB.
Wes Herdeker.
Try again, the mic is not on.
Oh, Tramian Lee, IAB. Chen Wu, IAB.
And unfortunately, we have, well, we're missing two people who are only remote or not only. Glad to have you here, Tommy. Introduce yourself, please.
Hello, Tommy Polly, IAB.
And Deborah, you want to say something? Oh, she was waving. That's good enough. You can
Deborah
also keep
Burgard.
the video on if you want to.
Deborah Burgard.
Great to have you both here joining us remotely. Okay, now it's your chance for questions. Oh, wait, Pete, there.
Hi all, Pete Resnick. When you posted the announcement for Warren taking over the liaison, it caused a conversation, and I thought I meant to send email, but you're all here. I want to encourage you to do more with liaisons. In particular, when you made the announcement, it would have been great to not only have that he was doing this and Allison was stepping down, but what that liaison's about, why it's still important to keep, because I assume you folks review them every so often. Warren happens to be an AD, and I know we generally don't assign liaison ADs to be liaisons because of possible conflicts of interest, why that was an okay thing. So I think that would be a great, opportunity every time you make a change to let us know what's going on. But I also encourage you talk to some working groups when they're doing work that impacts liaisons and kind of let people know that you're there. Would be really a good thing over the long term.
So actually that feedback reached us already. So we're aware of that. I want to say a couple of things. We already know that we can improve the information we provide about liaisons. That's something we are working on. And as always, the IAB is slow on this, but we are working on that. The other thing is we actually didn't really consider to kind of taking a liaison down, because that might give a wrong signal to the other organization, right? So this is like something that has to be treated very carefully. So we usually try to replace people, but it's also not that easy to find people in this space because we need experts that are kind of knowledgeable in both organizations. So the set is very limited. But gladly, a lot of the liaisons are actually working very well. And then to your third point about working groups, but it's not always required to have an official liaison to do good work. We actually encourage people to just like work on a technical basis and talk to each other, because that gives us the best outcome. The cases where we have liaisons, there is some kind of formal requirement where we otherwise cannot access certain documents in the other organization, or where it's just like the process of the organization as that like requires this kind of process. So this is not usually coming from our side. From our side, we just usually try to work together and do good work. That's the main incentive. Wes, you're a liaison coordinator. You get the first word.
So Pete, thanks for the question. It's a good one. I think in the process of revamping the liaison coordination role in the last couple of years, we've made a lot of positive changes and we're not done yet. A couple of ones to point out. One is, in fact, this IAB Open was the first time where we actually had a presentation from a liaison manager about what that organization was, and it was about IEEE. Thank you. It was, well, you can thank Russ.
Second time.
It was a really good one. Second time? Okay, second time. We are trying to do that every IAB Open, assuming there's time on the agenda to do so, but that's actually a high priority for us because of exactly what you said, right? I have learned a lot in the last couple of years as liaison coordinator, the vast number of things that we have relationships with and more about them, and I'm not done learning myself. So there's a lot to learn and we're continuing to ramp that up. So I expect to see more of that in the future. one of the other things that we're doing a lot of lately is asking people in those roles, who are the other IETF members that might be participating in both organizations, so that we can sort of start building a list of and understanding who is available to fill these positions. In the case of Warren, he was actually the only person that volunteered. We did make a call for volunteers, and Warren's like, I'll do it if nobody else does. So, you know, Warren got the job. There are a couple of organizations that are much more remote and less familiar. I mean, Russ talked about IEEE today, and I think most people here at least have some knowledge about IEEE, whereas some of the other organizations, that's not true. And so our goal is to continue that education over time. So thank you for the question.
A quick point from the IETF side of things. So obviously the IAB establishes, manages these relationships, but they're critical to the work of the IETF, right? And for some of these organizations, especially sort of the more formal, older SDOs, right, they're quite difficult to establish. And once you have one, it's worth holding on to it, even though it might go dormant for a little while, because sometimes it can take a long time to get it back. And if you need it and you don't have it, right, it's a little bit like an insurance kind of thing, right? So it's not a bad thing if a liaison is quiet for a while, right? It's probably actually a good thing. But giving it up, as you mentioned that, right, it is a very deliberate choice, and we need to be very careful that when we do that.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, then we take the next question, Andrew.
Hi, thank you. It's off. Andrew Campling. I think it was really great to see the recent M10 workshop. Although I could politely say it's nearly 9 years after the publication of RFC 7258. So great to see it, but maybe could have been done quite a few years earlier. And I wonder, is there a mechanism for the community to sort of identify things where the IAB could help get ahead of the curve in considering sort of big, significant architecture issues to give direction rather than sort of catching up? What can we do to help with that? Thank you.
I mean, join the IB. No. So I think the one tool that we use, like actually there are multiple tools that we use to engage with the community, but the one that is like the most predominant is that we have these IAB programs, which we try to set up on topics where we think like a discussion with the IAB is needed. But I also have to admit that what the IAB is driving also depends a little bit on the members, on the IAB, of course. And we are trying to, or like the NUMCOM is actually doing a great job trying to cover broad expertise on the IAB, but that always influences on where we're focusing on, because we also just have limited capacity, of course. So I'm not sure that answers your question, but there are more people here.
Yeah, so one way is to send us email, and there's some recent examples like this environmental impacts workshop that we're now setting up for next month. That actually came about through several channels. So there was some IAB members who were interested about a topic. We felt that this was important. It was seen as in some parts of the industry as you know, an important issue to solve. But we also got connections from other people outside the IAB, totally different groups who were thinking about this and were proposing a workshop on this topic. So we put our efforts together, and now we are looking forward to a very interesting workshop with 30 or so papers submitted from different angles. So talk to us, and it's not always just about like what I'm interested in right now. I might actually be interested after you explain that this is important for these and these reasons, and then I and other IAB members would get into that. And yeah, we'd like to hear from you. Thank you.
So one other quick point is we try and have workshops where we believe that progress can be made. And a lot of times if there's already progress happening in the industry, It doesn't make sense for us to hold something when there's already a lot of other stuff going on, or there's other times it's often too early that we don't think progress can be made because the technology is not there yet. So getting that timing right has been a struggle. And we've thought about many other workshops that we have not actually put out because it didn't seem like it was the right time, or it wasn't going to be a productive conversation. I'm very happy that the last few went off so well. So.
Yeah, but I really want to second, please reach out to us, right? Like send us an email, talk to us. We're here. Our queue is empty. Last chance. You have to be quick. You don't have to run to the mic line. You just have to click a button. No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, IAB. We have the LLC up next, if you would make your way to the stage. I think we have 3 of the 5 directors, and we have Jay. You already mentioned Maya So Mr. Kids. I don't know if she's online. I see her there. Hey. Thank you for making it. This, I hope it's not too difficult, but I'm very sorry you couldn't make it. Right. I forget who usually stands up here. I think it's you.
Maybe it's me.
Yeah.
Okay. Happy to take any questions from the microphone or online. All right, hearing none, I think we're good. All right, thank you.
Oh. So I can go make the outgoing. So Jay Daly, Executive Director, Jason Livingood, Chair of the Board, Lars Eggert, Board Member, John Turner, our Treasurer, Maya Andelkovic, who was right there, who's another Director, and Peter Van Rosti couldn't make it, unfortunately. Right, which brings us to the IESG. And this is our photos. Jason did this all wrong. See, I should have stayed up here. And that brings us to the IESG. So if the IESG would please make their way to the stage. And those of you who want to ask questions, make your way into the queue. We have 24 minutes. And Francesca is remote. Hello. Francesca was out for a while on maternity leave. She's back now, 50%, I think. We're very excited that you're back and that you're remotely participating. It seems to be a good window now for you, so that we lined that up perfectly. Thank you, everybody, for picking a time where Francesca can be with us with the video on. Let's start with Martin Duke down here and do a quick round of introductions.
Martin Duke, Transport Area.
Jahid John Sharkar, Transport Area.
Mia Kulim again, IB Chair.
John Scudder, Routing.
Murray Kucharavi, Art.
Warren Kumari, Ops.
Lars Eggert, Gen.
Balvautus, Security.
Alvaro Rathana, Routing.
Andrew Alston, Routing.
Eric Vink, Internet.
Roman Danilio, Security.
Rob Wilson, Ops.
Eric Klein, Internet.
And Francesca Palombini, Art.
Thanks all. And the queues are open and the mics are empty. No? Oh. Yoshiro Yonea, please go ahead. Are you in the room? I think
yes,
so.
I'm here.
Ah, hi.
Hi, this is Yoshiro Yonea. So my question is, I don't think this is IESG responsible things, but I'd like to hear the mood of this community. So a few days ago, there was a new mailing list announcement that the name of Storytelling AG. So I wonder what kind of story we are collecting for this IETF, especially for the local storytelling. Because as a Yokohama resident, I'd like to talk about something about Yokohama for the next year. But if what kind of story you are willing to know? For example, if you want to see cherry blossoms, I'd like to introduce Oka River which is a very famous place, or something like that, or very old story like reclaiming of Yokohama and such things. So, yeah. So I'd like to.
Thanks for the question. So this is a non-working group mailing list, which is not technically under the purview of the ISG, other than we approve it, and we are very generously approving almost anything. But I think we have a moderator or the initiator of the list slowly walking up to the microphone, so Adrian can tell you exactly what the list is for.
Yeah, hi, I'm Adrian Farrell. We asked for this list. This was Ola Johansson and I asked for this list under, I think, Warren's care as sort of supervisor of affiliate groups. The purpose of this type of mailing list is just to bring people together from the community who have a shared interest. So like there's a list for people who go running, God help them. We have an interest in stories, Ola particularly storytelling, me writing stories, and we are just interested to see if there are people who like stories, sharing stories. And one possible thread to all this is stories about the history of the internet and the IETF that we're aware may be getting lost in time, and it might be fun to collect.
You should definitely talk to Mrs. Dosky over there. I think there will be plenty of stories for you to start on.
And yeah, thank you. So seeing as we talk about affiliate groups, a quick bit of background on them. We all spend a lot of time together, like a couple of weeks a year. And it seems silly to me that we don't have a way to sort of find other people in the IETF community with shared interests. So that's kind of the purpose of affiliate groups. If you're interested in something, and you think there are other people in the IETF and you want to form sort of a social group or a way to find each other and self-organize, that's the purpose of affiliate groups. They're linked somewhere in Data Tracker. If you search for IETF affiliate groups, you'll find the page. And, we'd like there to be a community of people interested in the topic, and they're really easy to set up. It's basically a mailing list, and then whoever organizes it sort of makes sure that it's doing something and people are being friendly and personable, and that's it.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you, Yoshiro, to come to the mic, because this reminds us that we as a community should be telling stories. Like, we should together have good experience and work as a community. And I think that was your intention of coming to the mic. So thank you for reminding us for that.
I'll also point out, reading some of the drafts, I think we often are telling stories.
Let's not make the queues full, Warren. Abdul Salam Baryun is remote, I believe. Could you start your video and ask a question, please?
Yes. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Hello. I have asked a question before regarding the cross layering or the cross area documents. And I'm interested to know how the AD or the director for each area deals with active documents which may become in the future interrelated to other working groups, and how do they between them, how do they work together to make a better standard? As I have seen some new working group is established as let's say computing aware, or let's say a routing protocol is aware of another other protocol or another layer. So there is some cross area issues here. So could you just give me some maybe between or one of you can give me some
sure
overview
so
about
there's often different approaches, right? So some new work like squarely fits into one area, and there's no need to really discuss, whether TCP work belongs in transport. But for things that cross the area, it gets interesting, as you note, right? And there's a bunch of different ways in which we do this. Like one principle, for example, is that you look at where are the harder problems, right? So for example, if it's a thing between, like, say, security and transport, we would say, you know, is the security side the hard thing or is the transport side? And so we would sort of probably then place it with the area where we believe the harder problems lie, so that those experts have it a bit more visible on their radar as they look at work groups and agendas. But there's other principles, and I see Eric has his hand up.
Yeah, basically first notice that the areas are not isolated silos. And guess what? ADs talks to each other. But basically they're also directorates, pretty much that like Yang. Any working group chair can request a Yang directorates review or DNS directorate review, which ensure already some kind of cross-area relationships. And quite often when we spot this, when we talk with chairs, as an AD, I understand that the chairs have some document in my areas, my working group, say, oh, please request the working group last call to also be sent and forwarded to another working group. And essential some, let's say, cross-area collaboration, or even within an area. So there are multiple ways of doing it.
Warren?
Yeah, I mean, Eric covered a lot of it already, but there's also sort of when new work starts up, we try and have buffs and we try and schedule them when sort of lots of people can show up. So we share that information. Also, as Eric said, you know, ADs chat amongst themselves a lot, especially about cross-area stuff. We're also trying to do things like the technology deep dives things to try and sort of get more discussion between areas and make sure that we don't end up quite as much in silos. And Murray.
I got Roman first and then Murray, so I'm really strict about the cues.
To add on all the other techniques we've already talked about, we've had a lot of success in planning upfront, and we do that in two ways. So Lars had alluded to this idea of where's the problem harder. We have a tendency to send it to that area, but we even have a further refinement of that is to make sure we get that cross-area collaboration and the work is seen by both areas. We often assign an area director outside of the place where it's homed. We have a couple examples. We recently weren't sure where Tigris. There were issues to consider in art. There were issues in SEC. So it is housed in the art area, but there's a responsible SEC AD. We've done that with things like SCIM. We've done it with OHI. So this model kind of works in planning up front in that. Another mechanism we use to plan up front is to think through when we charter to explicitly build into the structural considerations of the working group about what other working groups, and whether it's IETF or even kind of liaisons and partnerships we need to think about up front, and then we name kind of parties based on how things are chartered.
Right. All right. You covered Murray's case. Rob.
Another example we have is working groups like the IoT Ops working group, where it's sort of covering a technology area that spans multiple working groups in the IETF. And the purpose of that working group isn't necessarily to produce lots of documents to act as like a coordination point between the working groups and communication point between the different sort of work that's happening elsewhere. So that's another example of how we try and solve this sort of cross area and cross working group problems.
Okay, I hope that answered the question. Are there other questions? Okay, we are 13 minutes early. Thank you very much for spending your evening with us. Enjoy your dinners and see you in the hallways.